Bantu umthetho. Hlala phansi. Hlala phansi. Hlala phansi. Hlala phansi. Amandla. Thatha le General Bantu Holomisa thatha. Chisa njengele chisa. Phansi ngesiphoqophoqo phansi. Khagerela Nyamaza. Khagerela Nyamaza. Hune Korak Kuzolo. Bambeza bane. Kumamwa. Bamisu jen. Ekeke. Bambeza bane. Kumamwa. Bamisu bene. Ekeke. Khagerela Nyamaza. Bantu wange. President. Viva Namusha, viva! Sicela amaqabane coordinator amabhasi namaqabane angama-national leaders e-youth to make it sure ukuthi akukho muntu ngaphandle sizokwazi ukuqala. Uchairperson kunini enxenxa enxusa ukuthi asiqaleni. Yabona nje basenihleli kanje ngokuyithoba nangenhlonipho kungabisabe khona osukumayo ukuze sikwazi ukuthi ke isikhathi sisibambe. Viva UDM, viva! Chisa njengele chisa. Phansi ngama zamaqhuthantamo zamaxokele zabathatha zabatshozi. Phansi ngozuma wasenkandla. Phansi ngabathatha umbuso bawubuyisela emumva. Phansi ngamasela namaqekaqulana. Viva UDM, viva!
Once again, to those comrades who have just come in, welcome. We are making the following request. From the packages that you were given on your arrival, there are T-shirts and UDM caps. We appeal to you all humbly to wear the T-shirts and to wear the cap for uniformity's sake and also for publicity's sake. We appeal to you. We don't want any berets because I presume they belong elsewhere. Thank you very much. We are about to start. I've been saying this. I'm always looking to my left, to your right. When the president descends the stairs into the hall, I will indicate. And at that point in time, I will request you to rise and sing for the president until he takes his seat. I want to appeal to provincial leaders and regional leaders to make sure that those of us who are inside the hall must please remain inside. And those who are outside should be requested to join us, please. We will follow through with the order of the program. I don't want to bore you. It is not for me to speak today. It is just for me to guide the proceedings. Thank you very much. You may still enjoy yourself. I will indicate when we start. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay, I'm keeping on talking, Brajo, Gran. Sharp. Okay, I'm keeping on talking. It's 1 minute to us. Hey, I'm a tumbo, ne? Pinde corner. Okay, we are devant. Okay, no fine. Uzazi khona zalapha eGauteng. Sharp. Okay, Lord.
One, two, one, two, one, two, one, two.
Yes, Lord.
Can we call the House to order,
to me?
please?
Okay, sure. Okay. Well, good morning to me, and thanks very much. Well, we are here in Nazareth, and this is where the United Democratic Movement will be launching its manifesto for the 2014 elections, being, of course, one of the first parties to do so. The first party to do that was the ANC back a couple of weeks ago. So lots to talk about, because remember, this is the party that was launched here 3 years into democracy amid fanfare. General Bantu Holomisa and Rolf Meyer back at the time were the sort of go-to guys. These were the people who everyone thought represented the new South Africa. But over the years, the party has indeed had some serious problems. So whether in fact they have done some reflection over the years, especially over the past few years, remains a moot point. You'll remember that back in 1999, they got 14 members of parliament. 14 people went into the National Assembly. The election after that, that number went down to about 9, and there was floor crossing in between. And right now, as we speak, the UDM has only 4 MPs. So the question then is whether that trend is going to continue, or whether they have indeed arrested it, and if so, can they register an upward trend? Perhaps, what is relevant is that over the years, a lot of things have been said. The ANC has had a track record in government. Other people have managed to perhaps capitalize a bit on that. But also I think parties like the Democratic Alliance have been a bit shrewd and better at organizing. Hence, they have been able to be on an upward trend throughout. They have grown throughout since 1994, whereas, as I say, even though the UDM wasn't there in 1994, but it was there an election thereafter. But since then, it has actually come down. So, does General Holomisa and his team have a strategy? Are they going to be able to arrest that downward trend and come up with something new and innovative that will ensure that they are a force to be reckoned with in this election? That we're going to see starting today. Of course, the final say. The people who will have a final say in that will be the voters themselves come May or thereabout when that election takes place. To me?
Please bear with us. I wish, Mama Unontenja, we could rehearse that Tiko Agnangaleko. The presenters should help us, please, so that we can harmonize it in the meantime. Tiko Agnangaleko. Yes, thank you. Let us up the rhythm a bit. Let us up the rhythm a bit. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Thank you very much. That is the spirit we want. I am not a man of God, but I was created by God. I have the man of God seated on my right. But the way we were singing does not really appeal to the Creator. Nibambile mos, ne? Yeah, we need to give it a bit of vuma. Nebona mos, ne? Thank you. I am highly confident now that we will be able to interact with the President when he steps in. With that kind of flow of music, I'm excited. Thanks, my brother up there. Thank you very much. I wish I could tell a story. But when the hall is this full, in 2009, Babu Mhlati, I was here. Most of us were here. Honorable SG, I think you bear witness to this. But what I'm experiencing today is way off above our 2009 achievements in terms of attendance. I must say also, Mr. SG, I am delighted with this kind of discipline that fills this hall today. We must thank provincial leaders for their giving leadership in this regard. Give yourselves a big hand. If I were to tell a story, politics are not about politics. Politics about tuning the way of life that assists societies across the globe to enhance their various potential, to fulfill their dreams, to enrich and nourish their wishes, not for individuals to fill their pockets. Politics are not about oration. Politics are not about rhyme and alliteration. Politics are about being close to the people you identify with, being close to the very needy, the sick. People out there need us. When we leave this place today, we must go out and tell and show them and make them experience that we have been revitalized. Let us give ourselves a big hand. One last bit on discipline. Discipline is not about the way of life, particularly when you go to sleep at night, because there is no order. Okay. I have finished my oration now. Shall we all rise? The President is now ready to join us. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. President, we have taken note of your presence. You look healthy and strong. We thank the Lord Almighty for that. We are happy that you have joined us. Without much further ado, I shall now start off with session 1, item 1, opening with a prayer. We have rehearsed the song. Khawusincede mzalwane Thixo akunanqaleko siphakame sonke sime ngenyawo sicele ubaba uJoseph Chidi
bow our head and pray. Modimo ya nang le matla tata o rena Jesu Kriste. Modimo wa ka tirelo shia thoma modimo wa halalelang. Papa ka ntle le lena modimo ga gone selo se re kang go se dia sa kgonega. Dilo ka moka modimo re di dira ka baka la go re ikokotletse ka lena. Re sa ilo thoma tirelo e modimo wa ka e ba moetapele re le teng re hlahleng jwale ka bana ba lena. Lebitso le le phela la Jesu Kriste wa Nazareta, Papa ke a leboga. Amen.
We may be seated. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's move on. Let's move on. We are now on the item briefing, preparation for election 2014. That is going to be dealing with Annexure N. Can I request the Secretary General and his entourage to come to the podium, please, to lead us through? Thank you very much. Mr. President, once again, we welcome you, but that formality will be done later on in the program. We thank you very much for gracing this occasion. Thanks for your presence. Thank you very much.
Program Director Tatula Visa, the UDM National Chairperson, the President, the NEC members, our guests, comrades, ndanibulisa nonke ententeni. Awuseholweni apha. Okay, thank you. I must say, President, that I won't go through the whole Annexure N, but I'll just touch the issues or the items that are important, especially for the aspirant candidates that will be interested in contesting the elections, the next elections. I understand that each and every one of you, they've got packs. Inside those packs, there is this annexure. So I'll take you through the first one that we are going to deal with is item 2.3. It is important that the elections are regulated by certain rules, especially the Constitution of South Africa. So it will be important for those who are going to be or who are going to appear on our list to take care of this or to be mindful of this section, because we don't want a person to be disappointed at the end of the day. So more than anything, it is the criteria which makes one to qualify. It is important that person nominated and included in a candidate list should be available and well qualified to serve in the party's best interest at the highest council of government. It is therefore required that such nominations add value to the UDM's list. The UDM list should always be judged on the premise that it respects the letter and the spirit of the UDM Constitution. Then I'll take you through the section which speaks about the compilation of UDM proportional lists. There are forms that have been provided. Also in your packs, they are there. Those forms are the appendixes of this annexure. So it will be important that those forms are completed or are followed to the letter, because without those forms, you will be disqualified. The annexure N1 says it needs personal information, the membership number and status, because we cannot take any person from the street. We need a person who's a UDM card-carrying member. So it is important then that if you have not joined the party and you are interested in contesting, please take membership. Or if your membership has expired, please make it a point that you renew your membership. Then other details are also clear, because the form also gives enough information what is expected from each person, from those who are going to nominate him or her, or even those that are going to be supporting of that nominations. Then Appendix N2 is very important because it talks about the curriculum vitae. I am aware that some of us, they are very afraid to fill that portion of this annexure, but it will assist us and others that will be nominating you to know what experience do you have. Have you been involved in community work? Have you been involved in leadership roles? Not necessarily that we want your academic qualifications. What we want is your involvement in working with our communities out there. Appendix N3, the candidate must accept the nomination and he must give us his pledge or her pledge and undertaking. That is very important, because if you don't want to, you have got a right to say, no, I'm not prepared to participate in this election. It is your right. Then Appendix N4. If we are going to be an aspirant candidate in this party, you need to come up with something as a contribution, something that will help the party to be a very effective competitor. As you are aware that our rivals out there, they've got a lot of these things, something that we don't have. So we need your commitment. So each list for each candidate or aspirant candidate, she will be required to come up with a sum of 2,000 rand, irrespective of how many lists that she's going to appear or he's going to appear. Am I understood? It will be 2,000, just 2,000. If we want to appear 3 times, because we've got so many lists, we've got the provincial list, we've got the National Assembly, then we've got a regional list, which is something to do with the NCOP. So you can appear on all those lists, but the only contribution that will be required from you is only 2,000. And before, it used to be higher than that. It was 2,200 rand for each list. If you wanted to appear on 2 lists, you were supposed to part with 4,400. So your organization is very responsive, because we have listened to you saying the situation is not good, our economy is not doing well. So we responded by lowering this kind of fee that we call candidate's fee. Then if we go to item 4 or chapter 4 of this, it talks about this candidate's fee, as well as giving you the account that you may use. It is very important, comrades, Maqabane, that if you fill your form or your deposit slip, please make it a point that your name becomes a reference. Do you understand? Do you hear me? Please make it a point that your name is written clearly so that we are able to track or to know, to understand who's this person that has made this deposit. So the account is very clear there. It is ABSA account. The bank is ABSA. Account number is there. But the account name is election account or UDM election account. So the details are there. And please, as I've said, put your initials, your surname, so that we are able to track your name, so that your deposit slips may not just lay there astray, and we know that this is the person that has paid. President and Chairperson, Program Director, I'll stop here for now, because I think this is sufficient to assist the aspirant candidates and other members. Thank you.
I'm not so sure these hands reflect you understanding what was said here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We move on. Manifesto in simple terms. I shall now request the item on the slogan will be dealt with in the President's address. We will forego that for now and move on to main electioneering points as outlined in the manifesto. I shall now request the Honorable Deputy Secretary General, MP, Honorable Kwangwa, to come forward. Thank you very much. Let's give him a big hand, please.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Mr. President and members of the NEC United Democratic Movement leadership of the party, Amalungu Mbuto, fellow South Africans. Well, mine is a very simple task. It's very short and brief. In that our manifesto, the part on the economy actually, has been broken down into two. You have Ngabayom Zikwangu standing in front of you, trying to summarize the problem statement, what the key challenges are, insofar as the economy is concerned. While on the other hand, my colleague and the Deputy National Organizer, Malcolm Taylor, will actually talk more about the solutions that we propose. I'm going to try and mix this course on SNGs at the same time. Basically, if one looks at the South African economy, you find a number of things. Firstly, that one has to say unemployment or peso. Again. You'd find Uhulmente all the time, they keep talking about an unemployment rate of about 24.7%, which is not a true reflection of Inyanisu. Because there are a lot of people about Makaya who have given up looking for work. There are a lot of people about Chanabo, form part and parcel of the group of people who have given up looking for work. And now, Jong of months, we could totally abandon are unemployed currently by just under 7 million, instead of the 4 million that they normally talk about. Now, it's important then to engage our members of the public that sibacacisela izinto ukuthi bazazi ukuthi ezinye numbers ziyathwikwa ukulungisela ukuthi ikwazi ukuthengiseka lento ibe ngathi liyaliwa or they are successful in fighting unemployment in the country, which is not true. The other very important and key issue here is the poor management of the fiscus, which is something that we've identified at the party, looking at obviously the track record of the ruling party since I'd say it from 2007 before the subprime crisis until now. Now go join alomatyala of mansu ukuthi kwakuqoqosho in the past, and that is no longer the case. Of mansu amatyala enyuka, but we're not getting value for money. Ngekubhetele kuthiwa kuyabolekwa imali ibe kanti kuba kubolekwa imali at the same time people are getting value for money, we're getting a service delivery, but that is not the case. You find ukuthi billions of kwale mali ibolekwayo ziya kwi-salaries zabantu, other billions ziya kwi-corruption ne-irregular expenditure. Now, zinto ekufuneka abantu sikwazi bacacisela ukuthi thina siyi-UDM ithini imbono yethu. Of course sithi siyayifuna i-budget deficit, siyamfuna urhulumente aboleke imali, But xa ithe imali yabolekwa mayisetyenziswe ngendlela. The other second issue is that xa ithe, in instances where we've borrowed money, we need to make sure that people get maximum value from it. That's critical. That's not negotiable, because there you're using public funds. You're using taxpayers' money. The other very critical issue is one where we highlight ukuthi i-ruling party is not the same ruling party sasiyibona ngaphambili. Where, for example, ufumanisa ukuthi in the past yayizama ukuthi kuzanywe ulingano, meaning it put a gallant effort to try and fight and reduce inequality. That's what it used to fight for in the past. But now when you look at instruments such as black economic empowerment, which are used to enrich a select few, it's clear that the agenda is no longer about enriching or trying to reduce levels of inequality, but is to use state instruments, even instruments such as BEE, as grubby instruments of self-enrichment. These are issues that FUNAS. These are challenges as fumanisa ukuthi ne-economic growth country is not growing at rates required to reduce unemployment. All those things are issues that ekufuneka sithi xa sithetha nabantu, when we engage the public, we make them understand ukuthi these are the challenges in a nutshell that face the country at the present moment. But then Mr. Malcolm Taylor is going to detail as to what we're going to talk about or what we're proposing as a solution, which is what Tina as amaqabane is something ekufuneka sigxile kuyo when we talk to the members of the public. Because of manzi ukuthi abantu abaninzi bayayazi some of the challenges, right? In instances ababasazi some of the challenges, it's important just to give them a summary and then focus more on our proposals. Because an election is about selling a plan, ne proposals the party. It's not about mainly criticizing the party all the time. But you can't avoid to criticize the ANC or using it as a focal point because it is the ruling party. And whatever statistics says the performance yazo would be a solid basis of how do we improve things going forward. They also enable us to compare our policies, negative outcomes and versus proposals, nobanjani compared to what they are doing. Without keeping it too technical and taking too much of your time, Program Director, Mandibulele. All right. The other second item, which the President delegated to me is one, sorry, Program Director, I actually forgot to mention it before I spoke to you, is one of trying to unpack the slogan, to get us to understand as to the reason why we've decided to talk about the slogan ACT, corruption destroys the gains of our freedom. And I think in this instance it's of utmost importance that I explain the slogan in simple terms and in particular in vernacular so that the maximum number of people can actually understand it. If you look at Nkululeko Yethu starting from 1994, you'll agree that we've made certain democratic gains. We're able to elect governments of our liking. We enjoy political freedom. We have freedoms of association and a host of other rights that are contained in the Bill of Rights. In quick instances, but what you're finding is that because the party is deviating, the ruling government or ruling party is deviating from the original plan or the original agenda, you find now what is more important is not consolidating those gains of freedom, but amassing as much wealth as possible in the shortest possible time. Now you find ngoba nje urhwaphilizo sususithi liyalibulala gains of freedom, ufumanisa ukuthi yonke lento sesiyisebenzela ibalilize kuba kaloku ayihambi ngandlela kuba kaloku imali ithini ufumanisa ukuthi iyatyiwa kukhokelisa urhwaphilizo ngaphambili. And kaloku ezimali zirhwaphilizwayo zimali ebezinokwazi ukuthi zisetyenziswe ukusa inkonzo ebantwini noqiniseka ukuthi kwi-departments apho umzekelo siqhwalela khona siyakwazi usebenzisa ngendlela. Now umongameli when ethetha is going to unpack issues and challenges as pertain directly to governance issues in the ruling party. Ezibangela ukuthi sibe convinced ukuthi i-corruption nongabikho kwe-governance ebambekayo ibangela ufumanisa ukuthi i-undermine the gains of our freedom. Because it is undoing slowly but surely, but I don't think even in South Africa we say slowly but surely, it is rapidly reducing or undermining lo mcimbi sesiwulwele ukusukela ngo-1994 to date. So those issues of governance, including their use of institutionalized corruption, ukuzama to prop up iparty one at the expense of others, and then the expense of ordinary members of the public is an issue that the President is going to tackle in detail in his speech and try to explain it to Kutisoga meeting. I thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you very much, sir. Councillor Malcolm Taylor, National Deputy Organizer, please come forward. Thank you. Let's give him a big hand, please.
Viva UDM, viva! Viva UDM President Bantu Holomisa, viva! Amandla! Thank you everyone and welcome at this event of the UDM. Let me go straight to the economy. Let's start with what we have in South Africa. I think Mr. Kwankwa has given you the initial package. What concerns us is that as a country, we are now 20 years into our new democracy, and we are losing vision. We are becoming a welfare state with many dependents, and pressure is increasing on the working class. As UDM, we want to revive the economy. We now have one of the most unequal societies in the world. And it is brought about by corruption and self-enrichment of the few. Even BEE policies and programs now seem to only serve self-interest, and the masses are left to fend for themselves. It is true that the ruling party has failed to properly manage our economy. Globally, we do not get across anymore as being competitive. We are now not a country that people want to invest in. We now have a lazy government which spends billions on paying service providers and consultants to start projects and shifting the responsibility and blame from themselves. So what does the UDM want? Basically, we believe that the onus lies on the government of the day to do more. It is what the government promised the people in any case. And that is what the UDM wants to focus on. It is government that must intervene decisively in the economy to create jobs, eradicate poverty, and bring about economic emancipation. This is a basic international understanding. It is not the job of consultants. A UDM government, amongst other things, wants to streamline the government, the cabinet, by appointing fewer ministers. We want to stop overutilization of consultants and advisors by appointing competent staff. We want to standardize all perks to government officials. We want to tackle corruption head on. We want to create more jobs. So we will then need properly planned infrastructure development, and we will want to invest in the transfer of skills programs. We want to link skills and training and job creation to fit with our infrastructure developmental programs. Small business needs more focus. Elsewhere in the world, small business carries the economy of some countries. Here in South Africa, it seems as though government is in competition with small business. No wonder then that we have so many people who have interests in those businesses. We want to reinvest in that sector of the economy, and we want to adopt a politics and policies to allow small business to thrive once more. In a cooperative way, we will get more jobs out of this kind of deal. While we love all foreign nationals in this country, we cannot only support them and overrun the retail sector with foreign nationals. This sector is also where we can get more self-employment for our own people. We want harmonious relations with entrepreneurs, both inside and outside of South Africa. We want more discussion and training programs for entrepreneurs. We want small business entrepreneurs to have access to capital. Our policies must open the new markets for products. We must provide tax incentives for businesses that create jobs. We must open opportunities for financial support to newcomers in business. In our youth focus, we note that South Africa has the third highest youth unemployment rate in the world. We need intervention programs to address this problem. We need targeted incentives and vocational training skills. We need to once more look at our green projects and see if we can physically deploy those of our youth interested in tasks as afforestation, sustainable farming, and the issue of combating soil erosion. In terms of people with disabilities, we want firms and government and private sectors to be fair in the allocation of jobs. Coming back to the industry, government has lost control over much of our industry. We do not even have proper consultation anymore where big new projects are initiated. The UDM says we need to start using our raw materials to create more jobs in South Africa, locally. And we need to upskill our locals as well to develop the finished products in South Africa. The UDM wants to do more. We commit ourselves to intervene in market forces so as to prevent our quality of life from deteriorating and our people from living under development or underdeveloped and meaningless lives. Coming to a conclusion, the UDM is pushing for an economic indaba. It is clear that government needs to do more, but the present government has run out of ideas. Investors are running away, and we are now having more and more job dissatisfaction and even strikes. The UDM says, let's call a national economic indaba. Let's inclusively discuss an economic policy that will help to eradicate poverty and create jobs. Let's bring about a social pact between business and labor in order to improve industrial relations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I am reminded that we are running grossly behind schedule. In the same breath, on the sector education, can I now request Mrs. Khulufelo Mukawa to come forward, please? Thank you. Give her a big hand.
Thank you, Program Director, Mr. President, and my comrades. Coming to education. As a country, we need quality education for our own children. But it's a shame, as we are speaking about the education system, because it has become a political football, whereby we find the teacher unions getting at the forefront, whereby we find that there are no discipline in the classrooms. So, what should be the solution to that? The solution lies with firm leadership. We are running short of firm leadership. There is no firm leadership in our country. Another solution could be to restore authority to the government, not to the teacher unions. Another point which I want to make, or which we are aware of, is that government spends 6% of its budget on education for resources and other things, and put them in the basic education system. But the quality of education is still very poor. What could be the reason? The sharing, the distribution of that money is not utilized profitably. Another factor which I can put forth is that learners and teachers are at a disadvantage because of the changing of curriculums year in and year out. We took the government in 1994. We were given a curriculum by the name of Curriculum 2005. About 2 years thereafter, there comes another curriculum by the name of NCS, National Curriculum Statement, which we have just ended the end of this year, last year. Now we are implementing what is called CAPS. So what's happening to our poor teachers? What's happening to our poor children? When they start trying to adjust to the curriculum, then the new one. When they are trying, to grasp what is really expected of them, things doesn't run their way. Secondly, the poor teachers are given limited time to go for workshops. You find that they are called for 3 days. When the person who has been sent to adopt the curriculum outside the country will take about 6 to 1 year getting thorough training, but coming back, because he's not the relevant person, then it becomes a problem. Another point which I want to make is our children do not get basic education they deserve. Instead, the education they receive leave them ill-equipped to find employment. Taking an example of the 2013 matric pass rate of 78.2%, which we are all excited about, but the end result thereof, we found it has been discovered that the majority of those students, good people, were unable to pass the aptitude test at tertiary level. Some of the students were unable even to read and write what was given to them. Is it not a shame? Ag nee, ons is ons is net tussen hakies. Ons good people, re ka mara bothata. Now, as UDM, what are we going to preach to our people when we live here? First and foremost, we want education to go back to the basics, whereby teachers should teach, whereby learners should learn. They need to be kept meaningfully busy for their education, so that at the end of the tunnel, they must find themselves somewhere. Secondly,
Very good afternoon and a very warm welcome to this special broadcast brought to you by SABC News. Well, this afternoon we are at the Nasrec Center here in Johannesburg, and this is where the United Democratic Movement will be unveiling their manifesto, one of the very first parties to do so, preparing, of course, for the 2014 elections. Now, as all of you will know, this is a party that was formed after 1994 by Rolf Meyer and General Bantu Holomisa. This is after Bantu Holomisa was, of course, expelled from the African National Congress, and Rolf Meyer at the time was one of the darlings of the former National Party. They got together and formed the party that is launching its manifesto today. Well, a lot has happened since. I mean, when they contested the elections for the first time in 1999, well, it was amid fanfare, a lot of people hopeful, and they got 14 members in the National Assembly. Well, in the election that followed that number went down to about 9, and in the election after that, in fact, as we speak, the United Democratic Movement has 4 members in the National Assembly. Now, the question, of course, is whether General Bantu Holomisa is going to turn the situation around. Does he have a plan up his sleeve? Has he and his team sat down, looked at the challenges facing the party, looked at the landscape, saw which opportunities and how, of course, they can capitalize on whatever opportunities that may exist. But also remember, the space has gotten a bit crowded as well. New parties coming to the fore, like the Economic Freedom Front. The jury is out on Ahang and given the events of the past week. So, yeah, today is the day the UDM will be telling us what it is that they feel so strongly about, that which presumably is going to make sure that the party occupies a bigger and better space than they have done, certainly in the last election. So General Holomisa will be unveiling that manifesto in about 15-20 minutes time or so. But of course, we'll be bringing you some expert analysis, but a bit of preview, like going back to when the party was formed, take you through what happened over the years and get some expert opinion on what are the loopholes, where's the low-hanging fruit in the political landscape so far, and whether in fact a party like the UDM will be able to make use of whatever opportunities that there may be. Now, without much ado, we're going to take you to the podium, and this is where leaders of the UDM entrusted with running with certain portfolios are busy explaining to the party faithful who are gathered here, giving them a context within which that manifesto, when General Holomisa unveil it, will be happening. In other words, you're having the person entrusted with running with education, talking about what is happening on the education front and where the UDM fits in. Somebody else is speaking or will be speaking on the economy, on crime prevention, the major areas. Now, once that is done, around about 1 o'clock, General Holomisa will then come on and unveil the manifesto. For now, though, let's go to the leaders of the UDM who are talking to various aspects of that manifesto.
Just about 18 million out of the 50+ million people about with social grant. Remember, the very reason why there is a need for government anywhere in the world, it is to make sure that government does this function. Basic function of the government is to bring about social stability. Now, there is a lot lacking currently as we speak insofar as what our current government can deliver to the people. Specifically, we're talking about poverty, and what it has done and what efforts have been done. And my understanding of the budgets, you go from national through to the various provinces, you will find that talking particularly about one thing which could be used by government to turn things around is a budget. You take the Eastern Cape as an example where I live. You find that it's that much small, the budget for making sure that there is food on the tables of every citizen of over 6.2 million. There are similarities in various other provinces. As a result, a lot of people are sick psychologically and physically. Government, the biggest budget, in the various provinces, you'll find that it goes to education as well as to health. It should not be the case. You can't have a big budget going to health where people, are allowed by government to get sick so that you need to employ doctors. You even train, some of the doctors, in countries like Cuba, simply because you are refusing to have a proper budget for agriculture, which is what feeds people. That's a major change that we will have to bring about as the UTM, and nobody can argue against that. It makes so much sense. It's as simple as all that. That's the first thing. Now, there is no integration. I've told you that I've worked in development space. There is no integration. Social development run with their programs. Agriculture will run their programs. Health will run with their programs. I've served in a municipal environment, and you'll find that the instrument that the government has, which is called, I just forget the name, but there is a process whereby municipalities get together. You'll find that my senior managers attend those meetings voluntarily. If they have got more serious business, they will not, go there, even though there is actually a law in South Africa which is intended to force managers, to make sure that the intergovernmental relations, that's the term I was looking for, intergovernmental relations are enforced. But you'll find that because senior managers are rated not on impact, but rather on output, on outcomes, There's a difference between outcomes and impact. You can spend R1 billion. What impact do you have? You can spend R1 billion and have outcomes, clean audit, and what have you, but the people will still be hungry, uneducated. Typical example is what happened this ending week, when students, just went on the rampage, forcing the government to come up with a solution. And all of a sudden, our national government can pop up R1 billion, and they find, where was it all the time? So people have become very creative. Now, this is what happens, lately in South Africa, when people begin to say, Ndilambile, and they go to the streets, complaining that they're hungry day in and day out. Somehow a message gets across that the simplest solution is to simply shoot them. Simple as all that, and you'll have solved the problem. Then you can establish a commission which costs tens of millions of rands so as to find out who gave what instruction to whom when, just because you are hungry. No other reason. So that is the new solution for our government, to people who are crying and beating the beat on the street saying we are hungry. New solution. This year already, 9 people are dead because they were saying we want basic services from government. I didn't say who killed them, but they are dead. And that is a statistic that you cannot deny, because they were saying we want services from government. Now there are 3 tiers of government. And the funny way in which the national fiscus is structured is such that a big chunk goes to national government. And then a lot of speeches are made saying we're going to open this dam, we're going to open this railway line, and so on. The smallest portion goes to local government to embarrass our councillors who attend funerals and weddings with these people on a day-to-day basis. That would have to change when do UTM, because we are realists. We want to make real impact on people's lives. That is the story. So after 20 years, party in question, in government is celebrating. People are dying on the other hand. What are you celebrating? What are you celebrating when people are dying? What are you celebrating? That's the question. Now, how will we go about this? Agriculture, we will foreground agriculture. We'll make sure that agriculture is the main thing, because that is what, there is no other source for food. Let me explain this. Food comes from the ground, from the tree. The trees come from the ground. So you cannot, in your sober senses, have the smallest part of your budget, going to agriculture. It just does not make any logical sense. How are we going to feed, 50 million people? It just doesn't make sense. So we will have to foreground, agriculture and make sure that people are trained on how to produce food in the homesteads as well as commercial farmers. How shall we do that? We'll make sure that our farmers, you differentiate between consumer farmers as well as the commercial farmers. Because people have got land, lots of land, they are using it just to produce food to feed their families. That's farmer number one. Farmer number two, your commercial farm, you've got to provide them with irrigation schemes. Just quoting OR, which I know best, over five big rivers take billions and billions of gallons of water by the minute to the river. What? How many? You can hardly count the number, of irrigation schemes that are taking place. And I promise you that is not an exception. Coming to the conclusion, we are convinced that the creation of necessary infrastructure is what will help us. I believe that without much ado, if we distribute the land fairly as a UTM, as is supposed to be the case, without making a lot of, unbelievable stories as the other newcomers are doing, of late, in a seasoned, practical manner, we will win the war against poverty. UTM is ready to rule. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. The next aspect we'll deal with is healthcare. Can I now request Mr. Paramela, NP from the Northern Province? Mr. Paramela, please. Thank you.
Program Director, our President, comrades and friends, ladies and gentlemen, the Limpopo leadership and our NRC leadership, I was given too much limited time here, but my item is about quality health care. Health comes first, meaning that health is very important in each every nation. But our poor people are still disadvantaged. People are still traveling long distances for health services. When I'm saying this now, I may advise you to focus onto your area. How many clinics, how many hospitals? How long distance do you travel for a health care center? You will find that you are traveling a very long distances. And this is very pathetic for the poor. And one other thing is the fact that the infrastructure itself, some of the buildings of the hospitals and clinics are dilapidating. They are very old. They are not maintained. But in this regard, UDM is committed in maintaining all the buildings, all the infrastructures. UDM is there to build clinics and hospitals next to your area so that you will no longer travel long distances. If you go to hospitals now, you will find people are still queuing in long queues, spending long hours in the hospitals. Some are even dying in benches. When you arrive there, you will find that it is very interesting. They have written Batupili and pasted it on the wall there. But if you would that, you want to find that they are not working onto Batupili. Go there during lunchtime. You will die laying on the bench there, meaning that to them, they shouldn't have written Batupili. They should have written food pili, because they would first have lunch and attend to you later. And one other thing, most of the people now, in each and every day, in our media, cases of unexpected death are reported because of negligence. We have our staff, our clinic staffs and hospital staffs that are very inhuman. And UDM is committed that we do away with inhuman clinical staffs, inhuman hospital staffs. That needs good management. That needs good management. I don't want to waste much of time, but let us go out now and spread this gospel that UDM is there. We will have to build hospitals and clinics in your area to avoid you traveling long distances there. We don't want you to die waiting for the specialized doctors, lying in the benches. We care about you and we love you much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. President, sir, members of the NEC, all present in the hall, I want to request you, please, we are in a second going to go live when the President takes the podium to deliver the 2014 election manifesto for the UDM. We would like all cadres, all our comrades, to stay seated, to remain calm and cool, and listen to what the President is going to deliver. I request you humbly. So the provincial leaders and regional leaders should assist us to make sure that that happens. I promised you of a small break, unfortunately, except for those diabetic cases. We should please stay put. Thank you very much. The last item is dealing with safety and security. I am not going to bore you with detail. Safe to say, between 1994 and today, we have had a group of 4 national commissioners coming in and going out the back door one after the other. What is the reason? Simple to find. There is no order, there is no stability, there is no continuity. The ministries in the security sector are too much in a hurry to run to courts of law to prevent Thuli Madonsela delivering her constitutional mandate, instead of focusing on the crime in the country. Safety and security is a matter of life and death. It is not a matter of public debate. It is not a matter of diplomacy. It is a matter of getting your police officers trained, enhancing also the assistance of the South African National Defence Force insofar as border patrols are concerned. I was saying to my wife the other day, Mr. President, watching television, I think there was soccer being played. Unfortunately, I'm not going to give detail. But I was saying if police vans were to reverse into that little corner and ask for passports, only one would have a passport. That's the seriousness of people encroaching on our borders. It is terrible. And we are losing jobs that are already not there. To entrust your safety, to entrust your social security on an incredible police department is a crisis. It's like saying in a civil war, let us come and pray in the middle of a war. It doesn't happen. The Marikanas of today would never have happened if we had a systemic police force, if we had their roles and functions cleared. I just want to highlight, Mr. President, in conclusion, one terminology that was used that worries me. The manifesto, the Marikana case is sub judice, but I just want to lift one little bit. When they talk tactical approach, who will understand that language in that area? Who understands that language in the police department? I doubt even if the minister understands what that language believes. Because you only talk about tactical approach when you deal with specialized forces, not in your public order policing, which should be open to all. Last but not least, when you handcuff a supposed criminal to the back of a patrol van, what impression are you giving to the nation? You're chasing away investors, you're chasing away potential friends, you're chasing away potential embassies that were to be created to assist to assist in creating jobs, because they are saying the situation is unstable in South Africa. Whether you want to run away from it, it is a fact. An unstable police force is a recipe for a crisis governance, and we are in the middle of a crisis governance. With those few remarks, let us pray that Mama Nontenja is going to come through, the National Treasurer, to compliment me. Thank you very much, Mama. Those comrades at the door should please come in. We are about to go live now, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Program Director, President of UTM, fellow NEC members, fellow South Africans, ladies and gentlemen. Mine is a short one. I'm going to talk about the three vulnerable groups: your women, your people with disability, and your youth. And those three are the most affected by the high level of unemployment in this country. The UTM is saying, as a nation, we must understand that it's not about men versus women. It's about men and women working together to build a stronger nation. We are saying the budget that is allocated to the department that's supposed to be looking after these three vulnerable people is not enough. When the UTM comes into power, we will make sure that these are well looked after. And we will make sure that we are not focused on the elite projects like your Gautrains, your e-tollings, not to say much about your Inkandla Gate, where you spend millions while these people are suffering. We are saying we need to consolidate the institutions that are there so that they can be able to assist these people, these vulnerable people. We are saying, let's take our youth forward. We change the mindset of our youth to say, you must start thinking of creating your own wealth. You must start thinking as an employer versus being an employee. And that should be started from the lower level as they go through their education, that they must steer to the right direction, that it's not only through being employed that you will get somewhere in life. They must become entrepreneurs. But we are saying the UTM government will make sure that there will be funds that will assist them to become entrepreneurs. Because at the moment, we see that the corruption is the order of the day. The funds that are channeled to assist those people end up in somebody else's pocket. You have seen your Andile Lungisas and company now answering on funds that should have made our youth work today. Our youth is not working. We will ensure that they have access to SMEs. And people living with disability don't need RPT. What they need is to be capacitated to do something. Some of them are more capable than us who are not disabled. So the UTM will ensure that there are policies that talk specifically to the issues that affect the disabled people. Instead of pitying them, give them something to do, encourage them. And we are saying nothing about them without them. We wouldn't have situations where we have bogus interpreters doing funny things while there are people, those people didn't hear what that bogus interpreter was saying. So if we are capacitating them, empowering them to be able to do their own thing and speaking to their own people that are disabled like them, we will be encouraging them. There is a need to incorporate the gender perspective in all efforts to promote the full enjoyment of human rights and fundamental freedoms by persons with disabilities. We need to promote positive perceptions and greater social awareness towards our disabled. The UTM will employ semi-skilled youth as green battalions in projects such as to combat oil erosion, afforestation, sustainable subsistence farming. And we will also arrange mentorship and exchange programs for our youth through bilateral agreements with other countries. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mama. Thank you very much, Mama National Treasurer, Mama Nondanj. Comrades, the time has come. I want us to change this atmosphere in the hall. Let us allow Gauteng to feel the vibration. We are about to request the President to come to the podium and begin the live engagement with the media. But I want us to start a song that is going to revolutionize the spirits in here. Thank you very much. I hand over to you, all of you.
Well, good afternoon and a very warm welcome to viewers of SABC2 who are joining us now. We've been at it for the past half an hour or so. Well, the United Democratic Movement is launching its election manifesto for the 2014 poll. General Bantu Holomisa, the president of the United Democratic Movement, will be unveiling that manifesto in a few minutes from now. We will be bringing you that live here on SABC2 and on Channel 404. But before he steps onto that podium to unveil that manifesto, let's take a very brief look at the evolution of the United Democratic Movement. Here's an insert prepared for us by Tumisho Mashaba.
The United Democratic Movement was formed in 1997 by Bantu Holomisa, who was expelled from the ANC after accusing a top party official of corruption. Holomisa, the former military strongman in the former homeland of Transkei, teamed up with Ruth Meyer, a former Nationalist Party cabinet minister, to form the new party.
The first step is to provide strong opposition. That is the basic starting point. If you have a party in power with too much support, with too much power, it leads to an abuse of power. And then you are on one track, and that is one-partyism. If there is not political competition, then the party in government thinks that it can do whatever it wants. It leads to arrogance.
Meyer later left politics to pursue other interests. In the 1999 national elections, the fledgling party mustered over 500,000 votes and earned itself 14 seats in the National Assembly. Crime, unemployment and bad governance were top of their agenda.
The people who struggled are now leading in this corruption. If I were to look at the position of South Africa before, we are accusing apartheid structures, National Party and the homelands. Then people expected that at least ANC will come up with a clean government. But the current comrades are helping themselves. They are on a looting spree. It's a continuation. President Mandela has said so. Thabo Mbeki had said so. Which means if I were to equate this to a German saying, and I quote, the Germans would have said, the troughs have been removed. However, the pigs have remained the same.
In the 2004 national elections, the party had limited funds and concentrated its campaign efforts in rural areas. Nationally, the party chose to campaign along the lines of poverty and unemployment, with billboards noting that South Africa had experienced 10 years of joblessness. The UDM said it would continue to attract the disaffected voter. The 2004 campaign attacked the ANC's electoral strategy of a people's contract by criticizing the ANC of abandoning voters by adopting neo-liberal policies that tended to exacerbate poverty and unemployment. The party also sought to discredit the ANC's call for volunteerism by asserting that it was the responsibility of the government to provide jobs and security. For the 2009 elections, the party launched its manifesto at Nasrec in Johannesburg.
When you are standing in the voting booth, waiting to vote, the issue of trust should be foremost in your mind. That will be your opportunity to answer such questions as, can we trust them to create jobs after they failed in last 15 years? No. Can we trust them to become custodians of the judiciary when they attack judges? No.
But party support for the UDM has been on the decline. In its first contested elections in 1999, the party managed a 3.4% of the total vote, earning itself 14 seats in parliament. In the 2004 elections, the party got a paltry 2.2% of the total vote, which equated to 9 seats in parliament. And in the last national elections in 2009, the party only managed a disappointing 0.8% of the total vote, earning it just 4 seats in parliament. Tumiso Mashaba, SABC News.
Well, a lot indeed has happened over the years since the UDM's establishment back then, as you saw in that insert by Rolf Meyer and General Bantu Holomisa. Well, to explore some of the UDM's performance over the past few years, we are now joined by analyst Ralph Mateja. Ralph, thanks very much for joining us and welcome to this special broadcast.
Thanks for inviting me.
Well, as we saw there, how Tumisho ended that insert, the UDM has been on the decline. Right when they started, everyone thought they were the best hope that there was at the time for something that could get as close as possible to challenging the domination of the political landscape by the ANC. But as we know now, that hasn't happened. In fact, the party has been declining over the years.
Certainly, the numbers are quite clear about that, that the party is facing an uphill battle. You look at how they performed in the first elections, their first entry into South African politics. They have been able to attain about 14 seats in National Assembly by then. That was during the 1999 elections. Yeah. And then in 2009 elections, if I get it correctly, the subsequent elections, they lost about 5 seats in the National Assembly, getting back to about 9 seats, and subsequently they've also lost another 5 seats, getting back to 4 seats where they are now. If you look at their percentage in Parliament now, they don't even have 1%. They've got about 0.82%.
Yes, it's just under 1%.
Certainly, just under 1%. And it is going to be very difficult for them to turn around this kind of a trend, because you have actually even more competition within the opposition movement. The opposition camp has become quite stifled. There are new entries, and you have a party which is on a downward spiral. It's going to take a great deal of work for them to even retain what they've had, because you look at the trend as we've just been shown, it is a decline. To just hold it there is going to be difficult.
But where's the low-hanging fruit, so to speak? When you look at the political landscape, what does a party with a kind of profile that the UDM has focus on? Where does it even begin if they want a real turnaround?
I think it is also the question of resources as well, that if you have this kind of percentage that you have in Parliament, you are getting the same proportionate amount of money that is allocated to parties. You have resources. You can't be present all over the place in the first place because of resource constraint. But also something that these parties are generally dealing with, which is quite a challenge, is to try to reinvent themselves. I believe that South African electorate are quite generous. They give you about 14 seats without really proving very much, and you should be able to demonstrate why that kind of a percentage needs to be increased over a period of time. We haven't seen that coming out from the UDM. We have not seen them increasing the hold that they have. This is just simply because the party just gradually becomes irrelevant over a period of time. With new entries coming in, that accelerates that decline of the party, and it's going to be even much more difficult for them as you're going into elections in the next few months.
Now, if you look at what's going on inside, I mean, it's quite there's a very strong level of organization. Lots of people are in here. There are a lot of parties that cannot pull the sort of numbers you are seeing now, even at a Manifesto launch rally. So, is it telling us anything?
Well, it just tells also about the general suspicion that the electorate in South Africa have. Generous as they may be to some extent of giving these parties the votes when they just pronounce their existence, you still have this suspicion that they have about these parties. Some of the parties that have entered politics have not done very well. They have had internal party wrangles as well, and I think that itself is the battle that opposition parties have to deal with. Now they have to prove themselves much more than it has been the case before, and they have not stepped up to that so far.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to hold your thought right there. We're going to go inside just to listen to the UDM's rendition of the national anthem.
without wasting too much of your time, Program Director, thank you very much. President, UDM, NEC members, PEC members, traditional leaders here present, and distinguished guests, UDM public reps, UDM REC, UDM members, fellow South Africans. It is my honor and privilege to welcome you today to the Manifesto launch, a United Democratic Movement for the 2014 elections. What you've done here today by coming here and gathering here in your numbers is important in sending a strong message out there that the UDM exists and the UDM is alive. But it's also an important process of helping and informing South Africans, ordinary South Africans and the people of our country to better make a decision, to make a better decision rather, in the forthcoming elections. In other words, as the United Democratic Movement, we thank even those viewers at home who have taken time out of their busy schedules to sit and listen to what we have to share today. We promise and will ensure not to disappoint, and we promise and will ensure that we facilitate your decision-making towards ensuring that you choose the correct and the right political party in the 2014 elections. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Without further much ado, I now have the honor and privilege to request the Honorable Secretary General, Mr. Bongani Msomi, to introduce the President of the UDM. Thank you. Mr. Msomi, please.
Thank you. Program Director, Mr. President, all protocol observed. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The United Democratic leadership and members, colleagues, leaders from other political parties, our guests, I greet you. On behalf of UDM, we welcome you to the 2014 Manifesto launch. It is a great privilege for me and a humbling honor to have been asked to introduce our most distinguished leader, the President of the UDM, Mr. Bantu Holomisa. A great South African named Nelson Mandela once said, "A good head and a good heart are always a formidable combination." The President of UDM, ladies and gentlemen, is a living example of these words. His leadership is inspiring South Africans from all walks of life to embrace our shared responsibility to advance and grow our young democracy. Most of you know him as the commander of the Transkei Defence Force and head of the Transkei government up to the first national elections in 1994. He has addressed forums around the world, including the United Nations Security Council, on the need for the UN to monitor violence in South Africa, the Confederation of British Industry, the Carnegie Endowment, the Council on Foreign Affairs, on Foreign Relations, Africa American Institute, the World Tourism Organization, and many other international conventions. Significantly, he is unafraid to promote freedom, as you all know. That is very frank, he is very direct. He has also been dedicated in fighting corruption, and he has been very vocal on that issue, ensuring that we have greater transparency, accountability, and involvement of the people. If there's anyone out there who still doubts that South Africa is a place where all things are possible, who still wonders if the dream of our heroes and heroines of the struggle is alive in our time, who still questions our capacity to restore our broken societies and prosper, today, the UDM will give you the answers. In the heart-stopping beauty of our democratic country, this is our time to make a difference. We should ensure that we have pride in who we are as South Africans, longing to what must be and will be a brighter and more prosperous, better future. This afternoon, my call is directly to the millions of South Africans who are here in this hall or who are also at homes watching this program. Whether you are listening or watching, as I've said, whether you're a South African by blood or by marriage or by desire, we, your UTM family, are urging you, all of you, to work with us to create a winning nation and to follow your president home. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce the President of the United Democratic Movement, Bantu Holomisa. Amandla! Amandla! Viva UTM, viva! Viva UTM, viva! Viva General Bantu Holomisa, viva! Viva General Bantu Holomisa, viva! Amandla! The National Chairperson of the UTM, Mr. Zolisa Lavisa, the Secretary General Bongani Msomi, the members of the UTM National Executive Committee, the UTM PECs, members of the UTM, honorable members of Parliament and councillors, regional leaders, traditional leaders present here, honored guests, the media, and the members of the United Democratic Movement in general. Before I deliver my speech, I would like us to pay our last respect to the late UTM Deputy President, Mr. Ntobile Kganyago, and also our late global icon and former President Nelson Mandela. If we may rise, please.
Omadima, osobukwe, oluthuli, nabanye basishiye nobutyebi beli lizwe. Siyakubonga, sikubongoza uNkulunkulu. Sindisa ilizwe lethu kohlohle sakhe. Khusela eli lizwe lingatshabalali ukuze abantwana bethu babe nekamva eliqaqambileyo. Sizwe sakowethu sithi votelani i-UTM. Nkosi itafula komali sithi votelani i-UTM. Phansi ngohlohle zabo, phansi.
My fellow South Africans who are seated in this hall, as well as those who are watching and listening from all corners in Africa. 2014 is an auspicious year when South Africa marks 20 years of freedom and democracy. We should be proud of the fact that our people have been empowered to cast their vote to choose a government of their liking. In many countries on the continent, true democracy is a pipe dream, and more often than not, governments are changed at the barrel of the gun. In that regard, we have made much progress after the apartheid had ended. I am sure that you, my fellow South Africans, will agree that in spite of our wonderful Constitution, and specifically the Bill of Rights, we have not yet reached the goal of transforming our country into a winning nation. Today we are meeting at a time when the tensions between the police and members of the public are at an all-time high due to service delivery protests that are often characterized by anger and violence. The growing service delivery protests and labor unrest are irrefutable indication of a growing crisis, with the state relying more and more on violence and brute force, as the infamous Marikana massacre and many other communities in the Northwest and Limpopo province have shown. During protest, the ruling party sadly sends in the police to brutalize the public, instead of dispatching senior government officials to attend to these people's concerns and complaints. In addition, councillors have become convenient scapegoats for the ruling party for service delivery failures. The situation is made worse by the fact that the ruling party, which is supposed to provide leadership, is imploding. This infighting has even spilled over to the local government level. Local government in South Africa is in shambles. Councillors have usurped powers of the administrators, and they often fail to distinguish between the party and the state in many municipalities. Councillors decide who should get which tenders and why, and state resources are used for party political programs. Another area of concern at local government level is the institution of traditional leaders. Traditional leaders have been sidelined in rural areas, especially in rural development programs. The UDM is of the view that the local government system should be overhauled as a matter of urgency. Talking of traditional leaders, the UDM believes that the institution of traditional leaders should be given the respect it deserves. The UDM commits itself to ensure that the decisions made by the traditional leaders, or rather traditional leaders' houses, are referred to relevant bodies such as the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces for action. The UDM commits itself to capacitate traditional leaders to take a leadership role in developing rural areas, and the colleges for the children of traditional leaders should also be open. The UDM commits itself to standardize the packages of the traditional leaders of the various tribes. This water is taking my airtime. Traveling the length and breadth of our country during our party programs revealed once more that our people are yearning for a strong political alternative. This compelled the opposition parties to engage in a series of discussions to explore possible models of cooperation. It is, however, important to highlight that political realignment is a process, not an event. Finding ideological and programmatic compatibility among different political parties is not an easy process. It requires proper sequencing and pacing due to the number of people and processes it involves. In 2010, the United Democratic Movement National Congress gave us the mandate to actively find ways in which we can work and cooperate with sister opposition parties before and after 2014 elections. But let me ask you a few questions. Do you think that rich people are getting more and more money and that poor just sink it deeper into poverty? And never. South Africa today has earned the dubious title of being one of the most unequal societies in the world. The badge of dishonor is a direct consequence of corruption and policies that allow the rich to accumulate obscene wealth in a vast ocean of poverty. This situation is made worse by the ruling party's abuse of otherwise well-intended policies of empowerment such as BEE and state tender policies which are twisted to enrich the politically connected few. Even in the face of global and local economic and financial crises, they insist on parasitic preservation of their lifestyle through taxpayers' monies. The most painful irony is that of a former liberation movement that espoused egalitarian principles during the struggle years that presides over the most sophisticated form of institutionalized corruption which worsens inequality. Do you agree with the UDM that corruption destroys the gains of our freedom? Some of the UDM solutions are to root out this culture of corruption being celebrated and condoned. This can be done by applying the rule of law across the board, irrespective of one's social standing. Promote a culture of good governance. Instill respect for the separation of powers of government, legislatures, and judiciary. Restore the powers of accounting officers and ensure that there is no political interference. Introduce special courts dedicated to handle cases of corruption, as was done during the 2010 Soccer World Cup, to swiftly deal with cases of corruption. Conduct skills and audit to find out if the right people are employed in the right posts and at the right levels. Intensify the training of civil servants. Review the current tender system that currently makes it possible for bribery and corruption to flourish. Have you successfully completed your matric or degree only to find that there are no jobs opportunities for you? Yes or no? Yes. Problem is that the reality is that 7 million South Africans do not have jobs. What is, however, most disturbing is that 7 out of 10 young people can't find jobs. What is going on here? The ruling party first tried to convince us that RDP was the answer, then ASGISA, and then ASGISA. After that, the new growth path. At the moment, they are busy fighting about whether the National Development Plan is a vision or a policy. Some of the UTM solutions are as follows. We will initiate job creation and opportunities for young South Africans. For instance, radically reduce red tape that stifles entrepreneurship and introduce targeted incentives and support programs for small businesses started by young people. Employ semi-skilled youth as green battalions in projects to remove alien species, combat soil erosion, afforestation programs, and sustain subsistence farming. Arrange youth mentorship and exchange programs through bilateral agreements with other countries. We will empower young South Africans to develop micro businesses where they, for instance, recycling and maintaining schoolyards, parks, cemeteries, sports fields, etc. Ensure participation of women in the development processes. Sustain investment in human capacity through education and nutrition programs. Xa silapha bakuthi ikhona ingxaki kwelizwe. Akuba kushota imali. Ngonyaka nje wodwa ukukhutshwa kwe-tenders kumka about 35 billion rands ngondlela mnyama. Unixelela uba zingangaphi indlela ezinolungiswa, zingangaphi imizi enolungiswa, ingangaphi imali enoqesha, zingangaphi abantu abanoqeshwa apho. Ithethe ukuthi ke kufuneka ngathi sinyusa ikawusi xa siphuma apha siyoxelela ama-South Africa uba ngeke sihlale koldaka kuthiwa siyibomba kuthiwa apha masidle uzipho likamakhulu kule nyama kuthiwa masitye. Therefore kufuneka siphume siqine apha siyoxelela abantu uba ngezi senziwe izinto into enayo iyatyiwa imali ngobani ngohlohle sabo. We will eliminate all obstacles that still limit the access of women to decision-making process in the field of education, health, care services, and productive employment. We will reverse the trend of shrinking numbers of South Africans in the retail sector, which is gradually being taken over by foreign nationals, with little, if any, assistance for South Africans to compete effectively in this sector. It is a hard fact that jobs are shared because of this practice when South African workers are replaced with family members of foreign business owners. Ndiyafuna ke ndiyibekelele le ndawo. Ibuhlungu into ufumanisa into kokuba njengoba sinqanda sisithi xenophobia mayingenziwa apha eMzantsi Afrika sikhusela abantu abalapha. But ufumanisa uba ono-business bathatha abanye babo i-opportunity yokupractice lo xenophobia ngoku apha kuthi ngongaqesha abantwana ababethu uba ngangena ezi-restaurant ungena ezifama ungena apha emigodini ufumanisa uba hayibo mani kutheni ngathi siyabekhutshwa nje aba bethu abantu kanti kanti bangaba besinoba necebo sithi kubo asilwanga nomntu olapha mabahlala bangaphakathi masizameni ukwaba le keyiki sonke kodwa ungasesefumanisa uba mhlawumbi xa userestaurant fumanisa uba i-100% yabantu bakunisevayo apha akho nomnye umntana walapha ngongathi abalapha abantwana bayenzi bona ii-courses ze-catering ne-hospitality industry iyafuna ukujongwa ke le into. Whilst on the subject of job creation, let's talk about South Africa's industrial policy. In 1995, the South African government embarked on a massive trade liberalization programs that dramatically reduced trade tariffs in a wide range of labor-intensive sectors, such as textile, agriculture, and mining, etc., etc. This resulted in massive job losses because our country's core industries and labor-intensive sectors had to compete with countries whose labor-intensive industries are heavily subsidized by their governments. Even worse, key strategic industries, such as steel industry, you remember ISCO, were unbundled and sold to the private sector, which is now selling the same product for infrastructure development at very high costs. The governments of the most powerful economies, such as the United States of America, China, and India, as well as various countries in Europe, recognize the responsibility they have towards their citizens. These governments do not hesitate to intervene in their economies by protecting local jobs and businesses. A government that proposes anything less does not care and is not willing to accept responsibility for the welfare and prosperity of their people. If you drive around Ekurhuleni rather, which used to be a hub of the steel industry, it now bears the scars of neglect and disuse because it could not compete with subsidized industries in other parts of the world. Some of the UDM solutions to this problem are as follows. We will create an environment that is conducive for the manufacturing sector and industry to flourish. We will reduce the red tape that stifles the ability of domestic companies to export their products to the rest of the world. We will develop support programs for the labor-intensive sectors and give special attention to those that create job opportunities for all South Africans. Now, let us talk about the infrastructure development in this country. Well-targeted and strategic infrastructure development is critical for the proper functioning of the economy. It is the cornerstone of sustainable social and economic development. The ruling party's infrastructure development program is not properly planned and fails to address past imbalances and backlogs. For instance, while government has budgeted and approved more than 800 billion over the next few years for infrastructure development, very little of this goes to the rural areas and other previously disadvantaged communities in the townships, informal settlement, and peri-urban areas. As a result, the infrastructure in these areas is in a state of disrepair. Even as new infrastructure is being put in place, you will find that there is a decay of old infrastructure due to lack of maintenance and plans. Ndifuna ke ndipose apha. Phaya ngoJune, August. Ndibhalela uPresident Zuma incwadi ndisithi lo minister wakho we-communications uDiana Pule uyamosha. Masimkhombe egeyithini Nxamalala. Baba kuza kwenzeka njani? Phaya into endayicoverishayo i-corruption eyenzekayo. Kule infrastructure yo rollout ye broadband apho kufakwa khona i-computer labs. Zifakwa only in 2 provinces. Ileya lo mama lo enguDiana Pule nase KZN. Baqale emzimkhulu kujonga le ezikolo abazifakayo bafaka i-computer labs esikolweni. Leyo computer lab une-access kwi-internet. Now ndithi ke kuNxamalala kandibhalayo kuwe ndithi Nxamalala noko ndingomnye wabantu bebexhase ukuwiswa kwe-homeland system. Le balkanization nale reverse ndiyibonayo ayisisindawo. Isingathi ngoku nisibuyisela kula policy ka separate development kaphucuka sahlukene. Why on earth would you start only with 2 provinces? Lezi zakuweni ezinye provinces aba bantwana ucinga babafuni bona ukufunda. Sizamxelela ke phofu bake ngumkhulwa wami noMadiba wayitshila wathi ndimgadile ubantu nxamalala angasibhuku kanti uzawugadelwa ngubani ke ngoku. So on infrastructure, a UDM government commits itself to produce a map of infrastructure development with emphasis on transparency and closer cooperation between government, state cooperation and the people. We will invest in the economy through a properly planned infrastructure development program and other large-scale government-funded programs that are community-driven and applies good environmental practices. Ensure that South Africans have access to passable roads, electricity and reticulation, and an efficient rail network. Create consensus with hosting economic indaba. There is a need that we need to reach a consensus. Since 1994, you are aware that in South Africa, we have been struggling in that we have not yet reached a consensus on what kind of macroeconomic policy should this country follow. As I conclude my discussion on the South African economy, it is clear that we cannot longer allow a few powerful individuals to unilaterally decide what our economic policies should be. We have seen the negative effects of this model of policy formulation. Over the last years, we have witnessed growing levels of tension and mistrust amongst the 3 main role players, that is the government, the labor, and business. On the one hand, this mistrust has discouraged big business from investing billions of available cash in our economy. On the other hand, it has often resulted in illegal and violent strikes, which negatively affect the economy, depress the currency, and investor sentiment. It is clear that after nearly 20 years of economic experimentation, that the ruling party has run out of ideas. It is merely tinkering with policy in the blind hope that it will somehow stumble upon a solution. A UDM government commit itself to do the following. We will call a national economic indaba along the lines of CODESA negotiations to discuss an economic policy that will help to eradicate poverty, reduce unemployment, and lessen inequality in South Africa. Use indaba to propose the development of a social pact between business and labor in order to improve industrial relations. Propose that challenges pertaining to land and property ownership be high on the agenda, as some are the direct result of the current sunset clauses which were reached between the ANC and the then National Party. Recommend a discussion topic on the mining in South Africa. Some of the matters to be discussed are the following: land and mine ownership, the allocation of mining rights to the ruling elite and its implications. Ayizukulunga kaloku into zakuthi intoba sithi xa sithi sifuna uyoxoxa ngento ye-economy sifumanise intoba aba bantu babethathe ubutyebi basithele ngemva. Yabona ngo singaya kwi-economic indaba singahlala ngapha thina sikhalayo, but aba no business sawuhlala nabo ngaba bakwi-top 6 ka-ANC ubaleka uchairperson uCyril Ramaphosa bonke sihlale senjenje sithi awu bantu bakuthi bingesithi nabe besinithume to go and negotiate on behalf of us ngo-1994 sekutheni ngokwinini abananishiye deliberately i-item ye-economy ukuba ingafeatureishi ngela xesha kanti nizawutya nodwa sizabafuna ke etafuleni. Socio-economic conditions of the workers and the communities around the mines, the controversial issue of mine workers' access or lack thereof to a provident fund worth billions, the union's investment arms and dividend payouts to those workers who have contributed to the fund, appointment of independent commission of inquiry to investigate how these workers' monies were invested, especially in cases where the workers were retrenched or had retired or passed away. Ingxaki esinayo apha bakuthi every day ndifikelwa zizikhalazo zabantu be-ex-mine workers ngabantu abasemgodini abathi esimkile kwinumbi but imali zethu zashiyeka phaya. Ingaba ke ngoku sawuzifumana nini dividends kuba lokho babethele imali baya-investa. Therefore into esiyicebisayo ke kubantu basezimayini intoba usukela ngoku sifuna kube khona i-inquiry eCommission ezawujongana specifically nezimali zabasebenzi basezimayini. Nezimali zawujonga imali zenu ezithathwe zawu-investwa kwezi investment arms. Nezimali zenu zazitsalelwa for i-provident fund. If kuthiwa mhlawumbi nine-millions or billions, aba bantu bazigcinileyo ezimali ezi-insurance companies i-accounta kubani. Xa ngaba ugodukile wawu-investe imali, ingaba loo mali ngoku ikweliphi izinga. Zizinto ke ezo kuzawufuneka sizijonge sithi make sure ukuthi siyabancedisa oogxa bethu ezimayini. Let me tackle now the future of our education. Although South Africa invests a significant amount of resources into our education system, the quality of the education of our children leaves much to be desired rather. Learners leave the school system ill-equipped to find employment. Another factor that puts our learners and teachers at a disadvantage is the chopping and changing of education policy with the appointment of each new minister just when the teachers master a new curricula. They have to start from scratch and in turn the learners suffer. What will a UDM government do? We propose that we'll translate the large education budget into a quality education by developing and maintaining an education system that produces school leavers and graduates that are equipped with job-related and life skills. We will create a career-oriented advice and education will be enhanced to ensure that children can determine their future careers timelessly and can attain the various goals on the way towards their employment. Curriculum development will also be an inclusive process involving all the relevant stakeholders. It will be designed in such a way that it adopts the changing needs of our society. It is important that the vital pillars of our education policy do not depend on the whims of one party minister, but are agreed by all South Africans. We will improve the quality of the educational infrastructure, such as the physical infrastructure, teaching material, and human resources. This will increase spending on the development, maintenance, and provision of school buildings, water, sanitation, and electricity. Xa sizawuyeka I want to appeal to you, ladies and gentlemen, that please, we are approaching a very sensitive period, and a culture of tolerance iyo ezosinceda singahlukumezi abantu. Let's go out there peacefully, campaign, make sure that our party nibe proud ngayo, but ningayenzi leyo nto ngenkani. Kodwa kuba ngaba bakufaka bakubetha ngempama asingoba sikho secaweni kakhulu, funeka ukuthi ungaphinde kwedini. But as we go out, I want us to remember our slogan. Our slogan today says, corruption destroys the gains of our freedom. Corruption destroys the future of our children. Corruption destroys the moral fiber of our society. Corruption chases away the investors. Let us save South Africa from the slippery slope. Uyabona ka ujonga uMzantsi Afrika besiqale kahle phambi kwekhehle uTata uMandela, sayiqala sayihamba lendlela, kodwa kuthe kakubonakala uba nokungena labafana emva kwakhe saqala izinto ziba islope ngokungathi uyayehla kanje. So sideep ngoku, uyakhumbula uba siqale ngoSarafina 2 corruption, saphuma saya kwi-arms deal, saphuma saya kwi-oil gate, ngoku sithetha ngonkandla namhlanje. How on earth can you usebenzisa imali zabantu uwakwakha umzi wakho ufike ibulldozer emzini wakho uyedlula uyangena ngemoto igrumbe umsele apha ikhupha ifestile uzosixelela uba uyazi loo nto uba yayisenza ntoni? Awukunaso isibindi sombuza lo muntu uba wenzani apha emzini wam? Ladies and gentlemen, nihambe kakuhle. Thank you very much. Siyabulela. Amandla!
Well, there you have it. General Bantu Holomisa unveiling his party's election manifesto for the 2014 poll. Well, with me is, of course, Ralph Mateja, political analyst, just to give us his take on what General Holomisa had to say. Ralph, you heard what he had to say. Your take?
Well, I feel like I've heard this before. I mean, this is some of the things that UDM has been saying, General has been saying, the fight against corruption and correcting some of the wrongs in the public service to make sure that you do have capacity within the public service. But also I think quite an interesting delivery today is an emphasis on economic codessa and also not really committing as to what exactly do they expect out of that, but they want a conversation about the economy, they want a conversation about ownership of the mines. They are not really putting their neck out as to how do they want ownership to be configured. They just talk about the ownership and also the domination by certain groups within the mines. And also talking in closer there, giving the speech, he emphasized as well an unfavorable condition that he outlined, that you go to the restaurant in South Africa, you find that there are people who are working, none of them are South Africans. No real commitment as to what does he want. He just says we need to look into that. But I think that looking at the general speech, it's all about corruption. It's all about correcting what is already there. Nothing new about the delivery today. It's all about really trying to get what is already there to work.
Well, corruption. It started on corruption, went to other issues, ended on corruption again. And as many people will see, even on the back of the T-shirts of every delegate who is here or member, again, it's corruption. Do you think that is enough, one, to retain the party faithful, but two, to actually attract new people who may have been attracted by other people or other parties elsewhere in the past or hitherto?
The anti-corruption message, you hear it across all different political parties, and it is actually standard that any political party should really be concerned about corruption. I don't think that really amounts to an interesting political project where we are, but perhaps also maybe South Africa is under such siege, according to the way General Bantu Holomisa has put it, that you actually need to have a message based on corruption. You need to have political project out of that. But it's not so inspiring. You need much more creative thinking about what you are going to do about the economy. He mentioned about the performance of the economy in the last 20 years, not really doing very well. The ruling party, the governing party running out of ideas, as he has said. But yet you don't find a delivery as to exactly how he plans to deal with this. It's not so much inspiring. Or maybe we are at that environment or within that situation where we don't need aspiring message. We need to deal with the basics of corruption. I don't know. It is up to the voters to decide as to exactly what constitutes a viable political project.
Lastly and very briefly, he said something about alliances and opposition coming together, and his stand on that, basically saying that they think this is not the time to be talking coalitions or going together with other parties, but maybe coalitions, but only after the poll. Your take on that particular issue?
Well, it's a principled stand now that they want to sustain their mandate. But if I look at the numbers and their performance and the trend, they need a coalition more than anybody else. They need to be very realistic and look around and see a viable political party, opposition party, that will really help them survive. You look at the back of their T-shirt, they talk about saving South Africa. I think they need to find a way to save the UDM.
Ralph Mateja, wow. Ending it on that note there, that more than anything perhaps the UDM needs to find a strategy or a way to actually save itself. Well, from me, Vuya Mvoko, and the rest of the crew, that is where we are going to leave it for this afternoon. It's a goodbye from Nazareth here in Johannesburg.
Watch the news on SABC. We bring you news in your own language. News that affect you. Sports. We have
Catherine Drew, SABC News at the High Court in London.
Shervin Brightsby's SABC News.
Sarah Kimani, SABC News, Nairobi.
We touch and change people's lives. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Hello and welcome to Rights and Recourse, a program that educates you about your rights and recourse to those violated. My name is Dumila Matez. The country's water resources are under stress. Townships and villages around South Africa are up in arms with the constant lack of clean and safe water. The Constitution and the Water Act are explicit when it comes to the duty of government to provide water to the people. Each person must get a basic and free allowance of 25 litres per day. To make it easier to manage, this has been equated to 6,000 litres per household per month. The question is this the case in reality? Before we introduce our guests, let's take a look at this insert.
Areas have to walk for miles to go and collect water from nearby dams or rivers that are in most cases polluted, resulting in people getting sick and also at times die. Various political parties are currently campaigning in these areas at present, encouraging people to vote for them, promising service delivery once they win, which in most cases do not happen. Some communities have never had access to proper water facilities at all. Other communities' water infrastructure have completely collapsed due to the lack of maintenance or municipal bankruptcy. People from these communities are still expected to pay for services that are non-functional. Unless there are drastic interventions from key role players such as water boards and government in dealing with these issues, communities will continue to be deprived of their basic human right, which is free access to clean and safe drinking water.
To respond to these questions are Trevor Bolzer, Acting Director General of Water Affairs, Dr. Chris Harold, Fellow of the South African Institute of Civil Engineering, and Dr. Jennifer Mulwantwa of the Water Research Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to Rights of Recourse.
Afternoon and thank you.
First of all, the question we should be asking, Trevor, let's start with you. What is the state of our water?
Let me try and put it into context, Dumile. I think in your introduction, you made reference to water resources being under stress. And I can just indicate that as far as water resources go, and that's the management of the country's entire water availability from our fresh water resources and also the water that we import from Lesotho, that we have sufficient water. We have sufficient water to deal with our current and our projected water needs, and in dealing with the projected water needs, we continue to develop new infrastructure, and we have quite a number of projects underway at the moment to increase our availability of water in our storage systems. When one looks at the problem statement you made with regard to water at a community level, I think in context we must first look at what we've done as a government since 1994. And in 1994, only 59% of the population had water above RDP standard. And since 94 up until now, and using the figures from the 2011 census, we've got a coverage of 95.2%. The problem, however, and this is the problem you're seeing with some of the concerns raised by communities about the lack of access to water, is that in many of our rural areas, up to 48% of that infrastructure is not working due to poor maintenance, a lack of replacement of aging infrastructure, and that is the kernel of the problem at the present time. What is government doing about this? We've put in place a program which we call our Municipal Infrastructure Water Program, and we have set aside over the next 3 years a budget of 4.3 billion rand to deal not only with that 4.7% of communities who don't yet have access to water supply, but also to deal with the refurbishment and replacement of some of the aging infrastructure. And that, Dumile, will be...
Well, let me just say, sir, I'll finish. I just want to make sure that we are all on the same wavelength with regard to how safe, how clean, what is the state of our water resources. Is that your understanding, Chris? As Trevor puts it.
I think the broad picture that Trevor has painted is accurate. It's that 48% of the new infrastructure that is not working anymore, which is a cause of deep concern. And there are many reasons for that, which I'm sure you'll be going into as we move along.
One of the other things that worry me, Trevor, is the state of the water. Is the water clean? Is the water... What is happening there?
Well, in terms of this water that's provided to communities as drinking water, I'm quite satisfied representing the department that the water that we provide is safe drinking water. It's water that's provided or supplied at a SABC standard. And we have a program, a self-regulatory program called our Blue Drop self-regulatory system, where we monitor the quality of water provided by our municipalities. And we're one of 5 countries globally where you can drink water safely out of a tap in South Africa. So from a quality point of view, I'm quite happy. But when communities indeed draw water from a stream, a dam, or other unpurified water sources, there I can't guarantee the quality of the water, and their caution must be taken in terms of the way that water is used.
Dr. Jennifer Mulandwa, you are from the Water Research Commission. What is the state of the drinkable water that we drink every day in South Africa?
I think from a research perspective, the DG has put it correctly. We do have got clean drinking water, safe drinking water for our communities. But that being said, there is a difference when we talk about the water resources. So we are talking about our rivers, our dams. And then when we talk about drinkable water, we're talking about water from those sources that is being treated and that is being fed, being supplied to our communities. And therefore, there is a challenge definitely in terms of the water resources in making sure that that water is clean, it is safe to drink. However, there has been a lot that's been done in terms of educating people that you're not supposed to drink that kind of water. From the Water Research Commission perspective, we actually lend support to the Department of Water Affairs in terms of research in coming up with new solutions that will be able to ensure that in those communities, how then does that water become drinkable? One of the projects that is being rolled out by government is the groundwater project, where there's boreholes that are being rolled out within the rural areas, and people are then able to get access to drinkable water.
Quickly, Jennifer, I just want Trevor to explain to us. I think I can take solace from the fact that you say we have enough water, we don't have to worry about water, but I was told we might be running out of water quite pretty soon. Is that not the case, Chris?
Well, yes, the concern that I have, if you think of something like the Vaal River system, which accounts for a very large proportion of the country's GNP, the next phase, next big water phase, we will be able to import more raw water into the system,